everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon Boys, the podcast where guys get together and talk about life, lore, libation, and all the things that come with being a dad. This is episode 22 and our third installment of Staring Down the Barrel. And we have the pleasure today of speaking with the owner, distiller, and founder of Ghost Coast Distillery out of Savannah, Georgia. Chris is on with us today, and joined by my Bourbon Boys, Kurt.
Hey there.
Altoon.
Hey.
And in spirit, Krat.
Nah.
Someone's got to pay the bills.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So
we this is going to be a cool segment. You know, this is another local to us, meaning we can drive to it. Not something I've seen before, so I'm really looking forward to this one. And Kurt, you stumbled upon this one a couple weeks ago in your weekend away in Savannah. We talked a little bit about this on episode 21, but now it's happening.
Yeah.
What do we got?
We're going to be talking to Ghost Coast, and we've got their bourbon here, which is a Master Straight Bourbon whiskey. And we're going to have Chris tell us a little bit about it. But before we get to that, in true form, when it comes to life, libation, and lore, Chris, we're going to ask you a few questions. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to bourbon in the world of spirits. Let's start there.
Okay. Born and raised North Carolina. So whiskey, bourbon, kind of inbreded at a young age. I love had some friends that were a little older than I was. Actually, they were about 20 years older than I was when I first met them, and they had families, jobs, things like that. But they, on the side, distilled, made booze. They did it all. Moonshine, but also they aged whiskeys and things like that. So got to know them. Got to work with them, saw it from that side of the equation first instead of just it being a business or anything like that. And you kind of got the bug then. I was in my early 20s, finished school, got my MBA, got into the real world. I classify myself as a serial entrepreneur. I've built about a half dozen companies and sold them and worked for a larger firm. I just handled their mergers and acquisitions and helped them grow their portfolio. Had a team that we would go out and look at different industries, different companies, and whether they were capital poor or executive poor or whatever, and we'd go acquire and bring them into the fold with who we were working for, and kind of give them, added his value and things like that. And in the turn, we had kind of as I described it, it was like my master's thesis every year, and we try to do 4 to 6 acquisitions a year, and a nice little budget. As long as we were doing our job and adding to the portfolio and adding to the valuation of the gentleman's company, he didn't really care what we did or when we did it or how we did it. We just kind of had fun doing it. So did that for about 10 years, and
were any of those companies in the spirit space?
No, actually, what was crazy is we were like me and the guys. We were trying to convince him to go into the booze business earlier, 10 years ago.
You're like, please.
He didn't want to do it. He was like, no, I just don't feel comfortable. He was at that time he was in his late 70s, so he was he had a moralistic kind of thing. He was a North Carolina Baptist, so you could imagine he didn't want that part into his legend and who he was and things like that.
Okay.
So, we had first started watching the craft, breweries coming up, and they were on fire, and we could do all that stuff, and that he didn't want to do that. And then we pivoted over, and we should just make some spirits and make booze. And he's like, no, I can't do that. So that was kind of my first look at it. And I kept all that information and, decided that I was going to leave them. And that was in end of 2013, right at 2014.
Okay.
And called my buddy up that I went to college with at Appalachian and said, Rob, he's a production guy. Worked 25 or 22 years with Black Diamond Equipment Company. Opened up 3 of their plants in China and all over the world. So, I mean, he was running 6 huge plants at the time that I convinced him to quit his job that he was loving and living in Salt Lake City, and convinced him to quit his job with no security whatsoever and moved to South Georgia, and he came back. We got drunk on whiskey on Old Fitzgerald. Never forget that.
Old Fitz.
That's a friend.
That's a friend.
We put a business plan together literally on the back of a cocktail napkin.
That's awesome.
That's when it started for Ghost Coast. It wasn't Ghost Coast at that time. It was just something. And we were here in Savannah. It was, it's a brewery kind of town.
Okay.
Shots and beer. But there's 6, excuse me. There's now soon to be 6 breweries operating here in town, but no distilleries. We were the first since really legal one since Prohibition.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
They've been making hooch around here forever. I mean,
it didn't stop them, but
this town has a history of bootlegging from the Caribbean, teaching. Al Capone came down here, learned how to move illegal booze through town, and then he kind of took it on a massive scale up north.
Wow.
That's great.
But I mean, there's records of him in town learning. There was a family, I think if I remember correctly, their last name was White, and they had a candle business out on Tybee Island, which is 14 miles away from downtown Savannah.
Yeah, you're talking about that. Yeah.
They, they in the late 1800s, they were moving, equivalent money-wise now, like $35 million a year of booze through Tybee selling candles.
That was a good piece of that.
So I have to tell you something. So a couple things. So the fact that you use the word hooch cracks me up because my wife's family doesn't drink at all, which I find to be a big problem. And
she's worth keeping now.
And she always talks about her. So hang on. She talks about her Auntie Caca, which they called her as young children. And her name was Kathleen, but apparently they couldn't pronounce that, but they could Caca. So they called her Auntie Caca. And Auntie Caca always showed up at the house with her mayonnaise jar with a rubber banded piece of saran wrap over it with her hooch in it. And it's the first time I ever heard that word. So the fact that you use that word is awesome.
So I'm dying. You had a lot of exposure, great career, M&A and all that. And your first thought was, hey, I'm going to break out of this and get into the spirits business. Is that right? Is that fair?
I mean, I was like, so it evolved into that really quickly because I'd learned from a mentor of mine long ago. He's like, man, get into an industry that's recession proof.
Yeah.
So then you're really solidified, and you fail or you
Good
succeed
advice.
on your doing and not any outside influence, whether economy goes to shit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. So it's like,
Oh yeah, no, don't worry about it. This
You
is
can
not a
swear,
family
don't
show.
worry about it.
Yeah.
so it was like,
No
all right,
one's
so
listening.
What do you want to get into that's recession proof in this day and age? And death and taxes didn't seem really interesting to me. And so I was like, well, we have a theme around here at Ghost Coast where it's like in good times people drink and in bad times people drink more.
Oh yeah.
To me, it's
Amen,
like,
Jesus.
that's the best recession-proof industry to be in.
Yep.
Now,
That's
quickly I
brilliant
learned that
advice.
it's just not all that easy.
No.
It's a legit business, and
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt.
you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
So, Chris, tell us. So, it sounds like you were introduced to whiskey, bourbon, pretty young. But I think one of the questions we like to ask you guys is, what was your very first experience with a bourbon or whiskey, and what was it?
It was Colonel Overhaul, corn whiskey, high proof, and I drank it with Dr. Pepper.
Oh, okay.
Drank way too much of it.
Okay.
How old were you?
It might have been 15 or 16. It was
That's harsh.
It
might have been.
I had a great childhood that I would never wish on anybody. But I mean, my parents love them. They're great. They well involved in my life and everything like that. But they also they did a lot. I mean, they were running around, burning both ends of the candle, things like that. My father has his own logistics company, and he was, going through that whole growing a business, being engaged in different associations, things like that. So what would happen is I'd see my folks Monday through Thursday, and then Friday I'd go off to school. They'd go out of town. And so I wouldn't see them until they came back on Sunday. And I have an older brother and a younger sister, so we would take care of ourselves. And this was like when I was, 16, 17 years old. So I was mobile. So I took care of my sister. My brother was there. And so we were, we get an envelope of cash and refrigerator full, and they'd leave to go on a weekend association meeting or some kind of meeting or whatever. And so we ran the house, on our own. And so had a giant bar in the basement, pool table was my room. So, it was just, it couldn't have been better.
I'm surprised you didn't start distilling then.
Yeah.
I was just having too much trouble getting drunk and drinking.
Had to be responsible.
First. That was the night. Reached into Dad's liquor cabinet, and, up until then, you would just grab whatever you could and hoping that they weren't marking bottles and the typical drink a bunch of vodka, pour a bunch of water in it, and my mom and dad years later they moved out of that house like, you should come get some of this booze. They got a lot of this vodka. No, I don't need any of that.
I'm good. Just pour that down.
So had a couple of buddies over, and we just grabbed that and went to town. And first couple drinks were great. They were fantastic. And then, like any other kid, you quit measuring and you just start free pouring, and it just all goes downhill from there.
We've been there a couple nights.
Yeah. Yes.
The pours get a little bigger.
Long on the pour, short on the pepper.
That's right. Exactly. Yep. So, all right. Well, let's shift a little bit, and let's talk more specifically about Ghost Coast.
Yeah, I want to hear. So you and Rob, it's like a bottle of Old Fitz, a business plan on the back of a napkin. So from there, you guys walked out, woke up maybe a little slow the next morning, but since you had an agreement, how did you start? What was kind of step one with Ghost Coast?
So step one with Ghost Coast, I don't typically do things the easiest way. A lot of the times I'm just stubborn, and people tell me no, and I just say, well, I'll prove you wrong. But, at that time, the state of Georgia, where we are and where we live, the alcohol laws hadn't changed since 34. They up until 2014, 2015, a distillery, and for that mark, just, a couple of years prior to 14, you couldn't even taste in your brewery or your distillery.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So it didn't make any sense from a fiscal business plan, because how the hell are you going to turn somebody on to a new product without bringing them in, showing them, tasting it, and at that time too, the craft industry on the distillations on the spirit side was still pretty in its infancy. You had some guys that had been there and been, the St. George's and the Fuse and those guys that had been around for 4 or 5 years that actually had really good product and still do, but, had gone through that whole phase of getting stuff aged and then getting out so you could then really start to compete. So we did the typical, go talk to the Chamber of Commerce, talk to the state and say, hey, this is what we're looking to do. Can you advise us on what the steps that you would like us to see? Instead of ask for forgiveness, always ask for permission. And you get a lot more, really get a lot more for that, especially from city, state officials. They love that. And so, because then it's something that they can add. And then we took it from a different angle, knowing that we're in the Bible Belt, even though it's, changed dramatically. Back then, it still was all about, we were just coming out of 2007, 2008, financial big recession, things like that. So, buzzword was economic valuation, bringing jobs, good quality jobs. And we wanted it to be more than just hourly guys and things like that. We wanted people to be able to have a career, have care, things like that. So it really kind of precipitated in where we got a lot of help from a lot of people. But at first, the first 6 months, a lot of people were interested in, we want to do this, but then we'd start talking about the business plan and what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. And they'd look at me with a dead look and like, you're never going to get that laws changed to make this viable for you. And I was like, well, what do I need to do about that? And, you need to go walk the halls of Atlanta and get some heavyweight legislators to actually agree with you. And I'm like, that's easy. I mean, I like to talk.
I'll just bring them some booze.
Yeah. Is that all?
So we spent a good 16, 17 months
Wow.
in Atlanta just talking to whoever would listen to us. And, we break them down until the point where like, all right. I hear you. Get out of my office. I don't want to see you anymore. I just wore them down. And then, so we got some laws changed that at least, I wouldn't say it made it financially responsible or reasonable, but it started, you get that door cracked and then it opens up.
Right.
Especially
For sure.
bring tax revenue and you add these aspects of it from the governmental side and they're like, oh, great. I mean, third largest taxed industry in the country, next behind nuclear and pharmaceutical. So, I mean, 50% of that bottle that's on the table, take half of that liquid out and that just pays your taxes. And then so you're like, oh, here we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That kind of started that whole momentum. And then, and then we also, we got lucky. I mean, I think anybody who's successful, you got to have a little bit of luck. You just can't do it all because then it gets just boring. But we really backed up what we were talking in regards to economic value and again, Georgia's a highly agricultural based state from a revenue perspective. It's our largest industry in the state, so we could add that, and then we started seeing more and more distilleries popping up in the state of Georgia, and so one of the things that we pride ourselves on is 70% of our grains, for the most part, come from within 100 miles of the distillery. So
That's very cool.
we get that opportunity to talk with farmers and convince them, hey, we're not asking for hundreds of acres for you to plant, but would you try this crazy grain in 50 acres? And we'll pay you top dollar for it. Better than that rye grass that you're just planting in there and getting subsidies from the government not to plant.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So it kind of makes sense. And then it kind of perpetuated with other distilleries doing the same. And now these mom and pop farmers, when they're not planting soybeans, cotton, corn, for feed and that for livestock, they can carve out little sections of their farm and really make a huge profit on
That's brilliant.
for us. And then, we ask them to silo it and things like that so we can spread it out through the year. And they're like, yeah. And I'll pay you for rent on your silo. And they're like, what? That's new to me too. And so it's like, I mean, it works for us. And so
That's fantastic.
it adds for some fun. And
very cool.
It's real
good
cool.
quality. I mean, they get all
Sure.
behind it, like, oh, you need to do this and we need to do that. And if you want
Yeah.
to create
Yeah,
more
they're pulling for you
moisture
now.
quantity in your grains, then we need to start earlier and finish later. And it's
That's really
cool.
cool.
It's cool. So I mean,
That is very cool.
I'm no farmer, but I've learned a lot from them really quickly.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's cool.
there's like a whole community built around it, which is
Right.
kind of cool, right? So not only do you get the grains from within 100 miles around you guys, but it's almost like you're bringing them into the business in a way. So that's
Oh,
that's
yeah.
pretty
They
cool.
can share the pride.
And then the other fun part about that is all of our distillate from all of our whiskeys and our bourbons and that, we run a two stage process, a low wine and high wine on a 500-gallon system. So after our low wine run, we have all this used spent grain. That's great for seed and feed for pigs and cows.
Sure.
We got one of our farmers that we get grains from. We've increased his yield of his yearlings by 7.5 pounds just by and
Fat, drunk, and happy.
Oh, yeah, the
Yes.
happiest pig.
I just walk
Take me
around,
whenever you
fall
need
down,
me.
get up.
That's awesome.
Not trying to run away.
That's awesome. That's really
We don't need a fence.
But
That's
this
not
is
going anywhere.
no
listen-
fences.
But guys, listen, this is what's so cool about these places, right? Because
I know. Yeah.
Jim Beam's not doing that. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is why we want to talk to you guys, because there's more behind the story than just the liquid you guys are
Right.
making, right?
It's resourceful.
And, that's what makes it so cool.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love
I do
that.
too.
Who needs fences?
Exactly. So tell me about the Ghost Coast name. How'd you come up with that?
Well, you want the true story or you want the made up?
We want the drunk story.
We want the drunk story.
The drunk story.
Is there
Just get to
another-
Rob
if
and
there's
being
another
drunk.
napkin,
I said
just give us
goat.
another napkin.
This wasn't
Goat.
the first name of the company. Rob and I, in our ultimate wisdom, we can produce and we can sell shit, but creative-wise, we're pretty stupid. And so it's like we came up with this brilliant sounding company and thought, it was visions of Step Brothers. We're going with this giant conglomerate name, and it would be all and things like that. And our wives, thank God, they're patient with us because they have to be married to us. But they let us live this out for like 3 days, and we're like, we're gonna do all this logo stuff, and they're like, y'all are blowing it. And I'm like, what do you mean we're blowing it? This is great. And they're like, no, you're in Savannah, the most haunted city in the world.
Is it?
Use ghost as a double entendre. Ghost coast, ghost spirits. You tie it together with
Yeah.
this whole spirit and ghost, and at that time, the paranormal. It's still big, but I mean, it was really kicking off then, and so it was a neat little spin onto it. And, you drink enough, you'll see ghosts, and
Or pigs.
Savannah is considered a coast town, but it's 14 miles.
Okay.
Long, so how does that really make it an ocean town? But it's not. So it's kind of this play, and that's really where it worked. And then after a while, we just kind of Ghost Coast just rolls off the tongue real easy. We call all of our fans and people that support us Ghost Coasters. So it just kind
Very
of plays
cool.
back
That's
to
cool.
the bar and things like that. So it just really
The
worked
wives
out
were
well.
right.
That's great.
I know.
That's great. Well, cheers to your wives.
Yeah, I think the Catalina Mixers Spirit Company would have worked out okay, though.
That's great.
All right, so you got a cool name now. You're rocking and rolling. Got Rob on board. What was the first spirit you guys went after? I mean, you've got a great lineup. Cruising the website. Haven't had a chance to visit there in person yet, but cruising the website, you got a great lineup. What did you guys start with?
Well, so we started like everyone, it's all about cash flow the first few years and trying to be as break even as possible. And so, obviously vodka. And when we came out, we rolled out with a regular vodka. We rolled out with a flavored vodka that kind of ties to the history of Savannah. Back when General Oglethorpe came over from England, he pulls up into Savannah up on the bluffs and he just sees orange trees as far as the eye can see. Like, oh, this is great. We're going to be a debtor's colony. Need to give these criminals, but not criminals, because most of them were put in prison because they owed more money than they could make and things like that. So what a better way to set up an agricultural-based community where these people just work off their debt and then they go back home to England and then send their wares back to that. Well, unbeknownst to Oglethorpe, 100 years prior, the Spanish were here. they had planted all these orange trees, these Seville orange, they're real sour and got a lot of flavor, but you wouldn't want to drink it. I mean, you mix it with other things and stuff like that. And then the Chippewa and the native Indians, they had enough of the Spanish and ran them off. And, all of a sudden you got all these orange trees everywhere. And, these must be indigenous trees, typical, English, too proud to check into really why they're here. And they're, because we know better. But, that was kind of the deal. So you kind of came from the old school of tying what we make with the place that we're in and our city that we're in. It kind of gives us a nice tie. And, we always have wanted to own our neighborhood and own our facility and our city. Being the first since Prohibition legally, it's been a really benefit for us because, what one thing is Savannah is if you're Savannah, they'll support you as long as you support them. And we've done that in our philanthropic side of our business where, we take the smaller nonprofits and help them by hosting, fundraisers here at the distillery at no cost, and whatever we sell booze wise, we give $1 back on drinks and stuff like that to really help. Because, you can't be everything for everybody, but you can really pick a few and really help them set their way and make them feel a part of the community. And it makes us feel warm and fuzzy because we don't have big budgets. We're not Brown Foreman. We're not money guys, but we like to try to give back whatever we can. And so it kind of protected with that. And so, it was what can we get out the fastest that's good? It has to be good. We won't put it in a bottle and put it out there. So the vodkas were the first two. And then we rolled up behind that about 9 months later with our flavored whiskey, the start of our flavored whiskey line. We've got a ginger whiskey and a honey whiskey the ginger and the honey are all locally sourced. Savannah Bee, the big company here that has, they're massive. I mean, they're big.
Yep.
But they helped us procure our proprietary blend of 3 different honeys that we put together, and then we filter, and then we put it in our 21% rye whiskey. And we like everything that we do flavor wise is spirit forward. So the first thing that you taste with our honey whiskey is our 21% rye, and then and it finishes on the back end of it with this great, not too sweet but just sweet enough honey. And it's really, we call it the gateway drug for whiskey drinkers that aren't whiskey drinkers yet.
Yep, amen.
And so it's like, all right, and then ginger, the same thing. There's a farm 7 miles up north of city limits, Lebanon Plantation, where they grow ginger and turmeric, and we get their ginger from them, and it goes into our ginger whiskey. And again, it's 21% rye and whiskey forward, but with a nice scent of ginger spice on the end, and it goes really well and balances really well with that rye spice. And again, it's if you're a lazy Manhattan or old fashioned drinker like me, it's like, less I have to muddle, the more I get to drink. That's the best way to go.
Yeah. That stuff slows you down.
That would be a great T-shirt, by the way.
But so
no
that's
time to
what
muddle.
we do. And then it was also this whole adage of, we really, we built this distillery to be a bourbon and a whiskey distillery.
Yep.
And laws changed and morphed and that. So we had to, the beauty of what I love what we do is we're not this giant behemoth barge, cargo ship that takes forever to turn because they're just so set in their way and they're so big. We're nimble. So we find something, it works, we can change to it or adapt to it. If it doesn't work, we can drop it off and say, all right, we tried, but let's be mobile and move and find where we are. And that's kind of also the antithesis of, we've got out of our 26, 27 variants that we have out in the market, we make here, 13 of them are out in the marketplace. I mean, it's crazy.
That's awesome. That's a good hit rate,
Well, I look at it as I can't catch fish if I don't have enough holes in the water. The holes I have in the water, better makes my chances of catching something.
Right.
And so when I'm out making sales calls, it's like, you're not going to like everything we make, but by God, there's going to be a couple.
But there's something there
you like and want.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So much easier from a sales side of, well, if you don't like this, well, how about this? You don't like this, how about this? And then I just wear them down and say, finally, they'll say, yes, just take it.
Pick one.
Yeah. Now, is you said in the beginning, beginning of this segment, that you're having that agility and flexibility to try new things. Is the flavored whiskey, because it's not a bourbon, is that kind of on the way to getting to a bourbon? You kind of pull a little bit to the side and say, this doesn't have to wait the typical waiting period for it to become a quote bourbon, but it has a lot of the characteristics on the way. We can put a little bit out, add some honey, try some ginger, experiment with that while the bourbon is still aging.
So every whiskey we make, technically, we could call it a bourbon if we wanted to. It fits with the mash bill definition from TTB and things like that, but we don't, because we don't want, we've always, core decision that we made is we don't put anything in bottle that's not good. Or as we like to say, non-offensive. So for us, it's this whole scenario of, we're not going to capitalize on the cachet of the word bourbon, because for us, it cheapens what we're trying to accomplish, in our opinion. That's why we waited 3 years to release that master bourbon. I wasn't really excited about launching it and letting it out there because I didn't think it had aged long enough.
Okay.
It was that we do things here by committee, and we thought it was good enough that it wouldn't be offensive. It wasn't offensive.
It's not offensive.
We've had some offensive.
This is not
you're right.
offensive.
You're a non-offensive.
We have, yeah. This one's not offensive.
That one's fun because it's really 4 mash bills in one, and we also 2 of the mash bills we went crazy, and we didn't come up with the concept. Let me first foremost say that we stole from 4 Roses. I mean, if you're going to steal from somebody, steal from one of the best. And their whole scenario is take different mash bills and blend them till you get to something that's really good.
Okay.
And that's what we did with this. Is it was the four Roses model, but we went a little crazy on 2 of our mash bills because we decided we wanted to bring in a couple crazy yeast strains to add to the flavor profile that you just couldn't get. So we added Saison yeast to a rye mash bill and then a wheat mash bill. And then all 4 we add oats to it because who doesn't like oats? I mean, when I was a kid growing up, I loved hot oatmeal. And it just has
so we've got
that is just so good on the finish that
we got a lot going on here, right?
I can't count how many times I've started a bottle of that, and by the end of the night, it's like maybe a third left. I'm like, what the hell just happened? And it's just
It's Tuesday.
Yeah, that's happened here
tastes like
too.
oatmeal.
But the ending results are never good.
No. Weird decisions made at the end. So tell us about this one. So you said it's a 3-year. It's been in the barrel for 3 years, and you've got a 4 mash bill. Okay, 3-year minimum. And you've got corn. You mentioned rye, wheat, barley, oats.
Yep. And then some really great water. And then our aging, I think, is really the key and it's the final cog of what happens here. It's pretty distinctive to us, I think, from a longitudinal position in the world that we live in. We're 14 miles from the ocean. We have a giant river that is literally a pitching wedge from our front door in our rick house.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's done on site. We mill, we ferment, we distill, we age, everything. So
all right, cool.
It's pretty fun because we can see it from the start to finish, and we always can see where barrels are and what they're doing. The uniqueness of our distillery of being in downtown Savannah is our fire marshal was pretty I'm not going to say immovable and not reasonable at what they asked us to do, but they knew what we were doing from a distillation point, and they knew at certain stages of distillation we're a bomb making factory, and we've got apartment complexes around us, students from SCAD walking up and down. They were afraid we were going to blow up somebody and kill ourselves and a bunch of people around us. So it's like,
had he tried the whiskey before the inspection?
No.
Okay, so he was just going on good faith, like, versus I really like this. I want to keep encouraging what you're doing. Just do it during spring break.
He considered himself a bourbon aficionado. Oh, and he'd come
fancy.
in, and this all happening before we actually started distilling. This was, I guess, so we just started. Our first distillation, first cook was January 4th, 2017. We were still hungover from New Year's Eve. We had all these new shiny pieces of equipment that we were like, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to set the world on fire. And,
or at least this block.
To this day, there's a reason why the first 4 barrels that we made, we're not touching for 10 years, just so, because we know it's probably crap.
But people love a good 10-year bourbon.
Right, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a big shoulder shrug. Maybe we'll see. Just don't touch it. Now, what gives you the like you said, you're in a unique latitude. What's giving you that that sweetness that's in the barrel?
It's all about our temperature variation and humidity and pressure and things like that.
Yeah.
Being around 2 giant major water sources, the ocean and the Savannah River, being in Savannah itself, from humidity levels to the pressure from storms, and whether it's a hurricane that comes through or tropical storms and things like that, it all affects the juice in the barrels. The best way I describe it is, we'll go like today. It was 45 degrees this morning when we woke up, and it finished out at 72.
That's a big swing.
Wow.
We almost went through 30 degrees of temperature swing. So imagine a sponge, and you squeeze your hand, it pushes all the water out. Open hand sucks all the water in. Well, that's what those damn barrels are. The whiskey barrels are sponges. And so when you put 53 gallons of 110 proof whiskey, and you go through 40-degree temperature swings on a routine basis 9 months out of the year. Oh, and then the other 3 months out of the year, you hit them with 105 degrees temperature. Crazy shit happens in that barrel. And so that temperature swing, what it does is it creates that barrel and it respirates. So it breathes. And so what happens is it sucks in that juice, and then it pushes it out. Sucks it in, pushes it out. And the only reason we know this is, you get into our whiskey barrels and you break those staves apart. You look at it, and it's besides the angel share that we all know about that comes out, seeps out, and all that. Well, you can see the definitive line of where the juice penetrates the wood and continues to come through, where 3/4 of a stave will have a ring of how much juice pushed in and out. So, along with the char, which we char our barrels at 3 from Kelvin Cooperage in Louisville, imagine how many times that liquid gets pushed through and out, back and forth through that char and through that white oak, that you get all these esters, these sugars, these sap esters, these things that pull all your bad esters and bad tasting that was left in from our distillation, because we don't distill it real high, because we don't want to burn off any flavor.
Okay.
But the problem with that is then you leave some maybe not so great flavor compounds in the liquid. So what happens is the filtration through the barrel kind of gets rid of those bad flavors and leaves great juice. Yeah. So, it was the cognizant thought of, all right, we're going to distill it at lower proof and then hope that the aging process really kicks in and helps us out. And that's also why we didn't want to go any earlier than 4 years, just so you get 4 distinct summer, spring, fall, and winters that we experience in Savannah. And, especially the summers. I mean, it's 102 degrees, our aging room and our distillation room, our production area is all, we don't heat it, we don't cool it.
Oh.
All we do is we bring in air 6 times an hour in both 7,000 square feet of production space, and then another 7,000 square feet of rick house.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when it's foggy outside, it's foggy in our rick house. When it's raining outside, it's raining in our rick house.
Morale is just,
It's crazy.
yeah.
There's days we can't bottle because it's so damn humid that no label will stick to a bottle.
Labels won't stick.
Oh.
Nor can you walk around on the floor because we're cycling so much air in that it's so wet and damp. But it's great for the barrels.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
And it's this trade-off. And
That's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Tell us about the flavor we've got going on. So we've all poured, I don't know, 3 or 4 glasses already.
A little more.
Oh, well.
Because it's like you said, we're trying to keep up with you and getting down to that 1/3.
I think those were just trying to get the equipment set up. So
That's true too. So what should we be tasting? What do we get on the nose, and what do we get on the first?
So you got your traditional rye, you got your traditional barley, your not so traditional oats, and your corn. So
Okay.
there's a good balance of sweet, there's a good balance of spice. But now you also, with the Saison yeasts, you get this apricot, you get this citrus, you get this grapefruit.
Yeah.
Crat.
Yeah.
I like that you called it at least apricot.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. Dave, we got to throw a little dig on Dave here because he always pronounces apricot. And he claims that we pronounce it wrong, which
From the north.
we don't.
Yeah.
But he would be thrilled to the fact that you actually use the word apricot
Yes.
because he always says everything tastes like apricot.
Yes. Apricot.
Yeah.
So. I'm definitely getting apricot.
Yeah.
All right, continue.
So it is. I get it as well. And you mentioned the Saison yeast. You think that's kind of the driver behind that really pulls that out?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, we stole that from the brewer guys, on their sours and things like that. It's a great little addition, and it's subtle. But of course, it's we're blending these 4 different mash bills together, so you got to be cognizant of how you do it and what order we put them in, so you don't overpower and lose it. But it's something that we really enjoy doing. And then at the end, the oat kind of just brings it all together. It's kind of like the cement that ties these flavors together. And then it's the age too. It just kind of brings it all into a nice 86 proof straight bourbon, which is, I mean, I've had some 86 proof whiskeys and bourbons that, they just kick you in the mouth and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Yep.
And
this is nice and smooth.
I know I'm biased. I love this. This was fun to make.
This is great.
We just enjoyed it, and it was our first.
Yeah.
But it's that we're proud of it.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah, you should be. Yeah, you should.
Well, and this is a great color. For a 3-year.
Yeah.
It's the barrels are like you're talking about working overtime, that 3 char. We've seen a lot that have been in the barrel longer than that, and they don't have nearly that amber, that richness. So I can't wait to see what this looks like in another 1, 2, 3 cycles for you.
Yeah, it's crazy. COVID was an interesting year for us because we launched that during COVID, and it did well. Considering, but with off-premise sales in package stores and that's because everybody was stuck at home, had nothing else to do but to drink, and so it really kicked in. And now with things that are opening back up, we're seeing the on-site, bars and restaurants now are bringing it in. But what's been great is that one's a 3-year-old, but we're really now getting into our 4-year-old barrels.
Nice.
So I'm excited to say, if you like that one, the new ones that are just getting out and hitting the street are even better.
So
I like it.
we can't get that though, correct? Because you guys don't distribute outside the state. Is that correct?
We have some online partners that do distribute outside the state.
Okay.
Really the big question is where is it being shipped into? There's certain states that just do not allow it. Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if I ordered like a case of candles? Can I get like the Capone candle case?
The White family.
For sure.
I love it. What's now that we're starting to open back up and you guys have seen some pretty gnarly times, what's the one thing that keeps you up at night? What are your worries? We talked about the bomb making factory that you've got.
Yeah, I think the thing that keeps me up at night is we're growing so fast that I pride ourselves so far that in the 4 years that we've been open, that we've never missed PO from our distributor to fill.
Nice.
And I know it's coming. It will. It just happens. I mean, it happens to everybody. But to me, I take my relationships with my distributors really to heart, and that they gave us the opportunity when they didn't have to.
Yeah.
We're like no other. I mean, we're like every other craft distillery in the world, in the country that, we're making good stuff. Cross your fingers, it'll be good. But, they gave us the opportunity and then they support us.
Okay.
Ultimately, every distributor, I don't care who they are and I don't care what anyone tells them, their main objective is to move product from their warehouse to bars, restaurants, and package stores. That's it.
Yep.
They're not there to sell your product. I mean, let's be honest. You look at their portfolio, it's giant for a reason.
Right.
Because they have to hit to every consumer, because I'm sure the four of us could sit around a table and there'd be stuff that we all wouldn't agree that is good.
Yep.
Or we'd all agree that's at different levels of good.
Yep.
It's because our palates are different.
We have that here.
Yep.
For sure.
So it's how can you expect a distributor to go out and sell your product? You have to sell it yourself.
Yep.
And you have to believe in it. And you have to have the heart for it.
Yep.
And so that's where I really take a different position with distributors, that you give us the opportunity to sell our product. All I ask is if I get you a sale, by God, you get that delivered when you say you're going to do it, or shit happens.
Yeah.
Trucks break down, like that. I get it.
Yep. Yep.
But you call that customer and you say, hey, it's not going to be today because of an issue,
Yep.
but we're going to get it to you tomorrow.
You own it.
Yeah, own it.
Yep.
And so that's the thing that I stay up at night.
And your team, I gotta imagine your team shares that same vision.
I beat it over their heads.
Okay.
every day.
Yeah, they probably don't listen to this podcast, so you're fine.
So,
They don't listen to me at all anymore. Like that.
all right. So the distributors are obviously a big part of your success. I'm curious though, because you are in drive distance, and believe it or not, people do listen to this. So hopefully you're going to be swarmed with actual people coming into the distillery to tour, whatever. What anything you would give us kind of a peek behind the scenes? What should people look for? What should people ask for? What's unique? Anything when we come rolling in, or they come rolling in? Any trade secrets here?
So we change our menu out fairly regularly. I mean, it's like in the tasting room, for example, we'll change that menu out maybe once every 2.5 months. I'm a data guy, so I pay attention to what sells and what doesn't.
Okay.
And so if there's something on the menu that's not moving, 86 it's out of here. See ya. I mean, you may like it, but if there's not a lot of other people that like it, then
it doesn't matter.
Sometimes to the detriment though too, because we have some really great ones that we pulled off the menu just because we were running through so much product that we were afraid we weren't going to be able to get certain ingredients to the distributor. And it's a fine balance of, juggling it. I always love people to challenge our bartenders because they're good. They're really good. But they also sometimes get arrogant. And I just love them to get tripped up, and I love them to get drinks sent back because it just hits their pride just a little bit, and it humbles them just a little bit. So they're like, okay, I got to really pick up my game and change what I've been doing because it's obviously doesn't work for this individual. Yep. That's the best thing, because if you don't get knocked down once in a while, it really does you no good.
Oh yeah, you can't get comfortable.
So what I'm hearing is Chris has just posed a challenge to us to come down and challenge his bartenders.
Accepted.
We're not that far away, Chris.
No, I know.
Although,
Sounds like a road.
I have a challenge for you guys. You guys come down. We have this drink that we made up about a year ago. It's called the Time Traveler.
Uh-oh.
I feel like I need to get a hotel room for this one.
is actually perfect because you can't drink more than 3 and know where you are, remember where you are.
Oh, shit.
I mean, it's literally all booze. It has 3 ingredients, 4 ingredients. It has, or 5 if you include ice cubes as an ingredient.
No.
It's got either chocolate bitters or orange bitters, depending on your flavor.
All right.
It's got our herbal bitters. It's got our cherry almond liqueur, and it's got our straight master bourbon. That's it. And we, out of curiosity, we were just curious how juiced up we were getting people. And so we made the cocktail and then put it through our equipment in the lab. And it's literally like a 72 proof cocktail.
Oh my God.
Let's go.
I thought you were going to say we put it through our equipment in the lab. His name is Kevin. And at 3 drinks, he fell over.
We smoke it. And we do a different, we don't do your typical put it in the drink, put it under a dome, and shove some damn smoke up in there, and miraculously it happens. Now, we make the drink, we put it in a jar, we then take all the staves that we have from our bourbon, we chip those up, and we put that in our smoker, and we light it.
It's like a bong.
And basically, it is. It's like freshman year of college all over again.
I would have loved science if they did that.
So we fill it up, and then we swirl it to get it in the molecules, and then pour it over 2x2 cube.
Okay.
Incredible.
I'm down with at least 2 of them.
So when we're coming to Savannah, do we call you Chris? Because we're going to come to Savannah.
And an Uber.
Then we're just going to get crazy and weird.
No, we're going to take the 88 down. All 4 of us in the 88.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
I just say, the only thing I say is one word for you guys. If you're coming down here and we're going to go out, hydrate.
We're going out.
I'll start now.
That's right. Exactly. So listen, I got to tell you, the location you guys are in is great. Like you can definitely see where that area is going and everything that's happening on the river down there. And you guys are in a prime space. I don't know if it's chipping distance, at least not in my game, but it's probably a little bit more like a driver for me. But again, great space. I definitely think we need to get down there because I would love to get into the distilling space and see it and really, have more conversation, talk to your gang. Got to throw a call out to Coco because she was fantastic when we were down there and fed us a lot of different things, including the bitters, which I absolutely love. My wife loves them. We drink them after dinner. So I guess here's the last question. Usually we do a last call, but because we're looking at one spirit right now, I'm going to ask you a different question. So, in the world we all live in, we all have challenges. We all deal with lots of different things. Who's got your back in the end, Chris?
You mean my teammates?
No, just in life in general. Like, you've taken on so many different challenges. You're now doing this distilling thing. If you had to call it, who's got your back? If you need somebody who's got your back.
Oh man, that's an easy one. My poor wife.
Cheers to the wives.
Here's to the wives.
That's a whole show in its own of what I've put that woman through over the last almost 20 years of marriage and 2 kids, and come home and I throw my briefcase down and say, that's it, I'm done. We're moving and we're leaving North Carolina and we're going to Montana and we're going to own a fly fishing and hunting resort, and you're going to run in it, and I'm just going to go out fishing and hunting every day. What do you think?
She's like, sure, have a time traveler.
Not that I'm gullible, but did you really do that?
I did.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Did she unpack, or did she was like,
We made it through 6 winters in Montana.
oh wow,
Shit.
that's impressive.
Holy
We
shit.
should never leave. But
Yeah.
after the 6th and the desire to have a second child, she said, it's either Montana or me, and I'm taking the kids. The kids
like a
at that
country
time and
song.
the dogs. So I'm like, she was leaving me in Montana by myself. And so
Yeah.
I said, well, it was a good run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Longer than I thought. So I'm coming
Yep,
back.
you're a
to
good
that.
man.
Holy
You're a good
shit!
man.
So you actually did it. I didn't think
That's
you actually. I
awesome.
thought you just said it. I didn't think you actually did it.
Oh, yeah. No, it was crazy.
That has all the
my
trappings of a good country song.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. Hey, well, Chris, in true form, you guys, this was a great conversation. Really, Chris,
should keep
cannot
going.
thank you
And
enough.
great bourbon.
More so for your patience and just us getting our shit together on this end. So I think it'd be great to have another conversation at some point. I think, great stories, and we certainly need to get down to Savannah and see you and
On site.
meet more
Yeah.
of your team. So,
Yeah.
So in true form, as we say, bourbon on.
Well, before we close it out, though, just for everybody listening, Ghost Coast Distillery,
Yep.
Master Straight Bourbon Whiskey, excellent. Like I said, I don't think it's available in North Carolina. Must be on Georgia right now. You can find it on some websites, but
Yep.
highly recommend. We talk
Yeah.
a lot of times about
Worth the trip.
who this would be good for. Again, he hit the nail on the head. It's actually really good across a wide range. It's smooth enough that first time bourbon drinkers
For sure.
are not going to be scared off. But there's enough complexity and uniqueness with the Saison and the oats and all that I think a lot of folks would enjoy it. So if you
Yep.
come across Ghost Coast, highly recommend it.
That's right.
Good call.
It's a great hooch.
Great hits. Now we got to get to the Catalina freaking mixer.
That's
There we
right. Chris, thanks a lot.
Chris, cheers to you, brother.
Bourbon
Bourbon
on,
on.
man.
See
We
you
thank you.